Welcome to Ryan's Running Reviews in partnership with Roadrunner Sports, and today we're taking a look at one of the most popular stability running shoes from Brooks. It's the Adrenaline GTS 24. Yes, they have made 24 different iterations of this thing. Let's run with it. Before we get started, I do want to say that these shoes were provided to me by Roadrunner Sports. However, no one had a chance to preview this video. This file synopsis is my own. I'd also like to say please leave a like on the video and consider subscribing. Here we go. The Adrenaline GTS 24 is Brooks' premium flagship stability daily trainer with a moderate amount of cushioning. It's great for runners or walkers that want some extra support on the medial side to help with overpronation. Now, in my opinion, the Adrenaline GTS is essentially just the stability version of the very popular Ghost 16, which is Brooks' all-around neutral daily trainer with a similar amount of stack height. There's some other small differences which I'll touch on later in the review, but essentially if you want a stability running shoe, go with the Adrenaline GTS. If you want a neutral shoe, go with the Ghost. It's a little bit confusing between these two shoes because typically with things like the Glycerin or the Hyperion, it's the Hyperion and the Hyperion GTS. They have the same name and they'll just slap the term GTS at the end to indicate that it's a stability shoe, as GTS stands for Go to Support. So the Ghost and the Adrenaline GTS kind of have a unique naming system, but it makes a little bit more sense for the rest of the Brooks lineup. So I hope that makes sense with regard to all the different stability and neutral versions that Brooks has. As far as the stats go, this shoe costs $140, which is about par for the course for this particular category. The stack height is interesting. Brooks does things a little bit differently when they measure stack height. They do not count the insert or the outsole rubber, which on paper makes the midsole's overall stack height seem smaller because according to Brooks, it's 25 millimeters in the heel and 13 in the forefoot for that classic Brooks 12 millimeter heel to toe drop, which is on the higher end of things. Now, if you were to add the insert, the outsole rubber, and kind of measure it in the more conventional manner like most other brands do, I think you would find this shoe around in like the 35 millimeter stack height range, which makes it a more moderately cushioned daily trainer considering I feel like most other shoes are getting up to the 40 millimeter and above limit at this point. So yes, you have a ton of cushioning, but in today's age, it feels like a more moderate amount, at least in my experience. And then when it comes to the overall weight, this shoe here weighs 10 ounces, which is down from 10.1 previously on the Adrenaline GTS 23. So it loses a very minuscule amount of weight. It's not light, it's not heavy, and honestly for the amount of premium materials and rubber coverage you get here, I think it's a good deal. It's about what you expect for an overall stability trainer. One cool thing about the Adrenaline and the Ghost is these shoes come in almost every size and width available, which means depending on the shape of your foot, there should be a version of this shoe that works for you, which is a pleasant surprise. Not all shoe lines or shoe companies do that. And then when it comes to the upper, I like what Brooks is doing. It does fit true size with regard to length, and I found it to be rather comfortable from heel to toe. The big change, at least what it felt like to me, is they added more volume to the toe box. It's by no means the widest toe box out there. It's not like a super wide toe box shoe. However, it definitely feels more accommodating compared to prior versions of the Adrenaline, and my feet were happy. I always love having just a bit more volume towards the top of my running shoes. The mesh they used also feels more breathable. It's basically a single layer, great airflow. It feels a touch better compared to last year. Not a massive change, but it feels like it's a move in the right direction. Then if we go into the tongue, plenty of padding here. It's not gusseted. For whatever reason, Brooks does not like to gusset their tongues. However, they did add these small bits of rope which attach the tongue to the laces to keep it from moving, and it worked well for me. Typically, I do like a gusseted tongue, but this implementation got the job done. And then if we go back to the heel counter, you have a very stiff and rigid heel counter, which is important on a stability shoe with a moderate amount of padding in the ankle and Achilles section. Again, really like what Brooks is doing with this upper, and I think it's a nice small step to making the upper just more comfortable in general. And you feel very connected to this stability platform, which for a stability shoe, I think is something you really need to have. There are two small things about the upper that really don't matter, but I still want to talk about them. The first is you have this elastic tongue pull tab, which does help kind of get your foot into the shoe, makes things a little bit easier. Didn't use it a ton, but it is kind of a nice extra touch. And then you have these large kind of foam blocks at the rear of the heel counter. This is purely aesthetic. It's not like you can feel them on the inside, and I'm not sure why they're there. They don't give you extra cushioning. You would think they would leave them off for weight, but I just thought that was just kind of a unique touch. The midsole foam has been changed to DNA Loft V3, a nitrogen infused foam. Brooks seems to be shifting most of their more conventional daily trainers to this. Now, having tried a lot of different Brooks running shoes, I can absolutely say that not all DNA Loft V3 is created equal, and a great example of this is if we take a look at the Ghost 16, which has a very similar stack height and setup. This version of DNA Loft V3 feels much softer and squishier compared to what we see on the Adrenaline. In fact, I would go as far as to say that the Adrenaline feels like a more firm stability trainer. It's not that soft or squishy. You do have a little compression to it, but I will say I think the Ghost feels much squishier and just softer in general. We also have to talk about the guide rails, which are walls of foam on both the lateral and medial side that give you support, help you from overpronating, and just give a bit more guidance too on that lateral side. Now, the guide rails are also a bit different. The one on the lateral side appears to be made of the same foam as the rest of the midsole, while the one on the medial side, just based off the construction and other previous Brooks diagrams that I've seen, appears to be a different kind of foam or just completely separate from the midsole. And I think that makes sense because when you use this shoe, you feel like you have a bit more support on the medial side, which is again designed to help keep your foot from rolling inwards or overpronating. I think this does a great job of kind of helping give some very gentle guidance. It's not overly intrusive. You do notice it just a bit, especially if you're coming from something like the Ghost or just any other neutral running shoe, but it doesn't feel like it's really inhibiting or doing anything strange with your overall running gait. And the fact that you have that firm midsole, I think, pairs nicely to give you an incredibly supportive and stable ride. With regard to the overall performance, the Adrenaline definitely still feels like the Adrenaline. It's a good do-it-all stability daily trainer. It gets the job done. It's not the most exciting option out there. It's not my personal top stability pick, but I know a ton of people, and I mean a ton of people, that love this shoe. It's just kind of a good, reliable option that people have used year after year. So if you're a fan of the Adrenaline series, I don't feel like this is a complete redesign or a major departure from what they have done in the past, and I think you will like this 24th version, especially if you like a bit more volume towards the top of the toe box and a more breathable upper. The midsole, at least for me, feels a touch firmer, which helps with the stability. It might be a bit more durable because of that. We'll see how that plays out, and that comes down to your personal preference. So again, a very small change, a nice all-around shoe. Again, not the most exciting or most advanced stability trainer out there, but I think still provides a very reliable, consistent, and dependable running experience. And then if we go on to the outsole, I was quite happy with the grip. You do have rubber through the midfoot, which helps prevent some extra torsion. You have decent forefoot flexibility, but through the midfoot, it is fairly stiff, which is what you want out of your stability shoe. You have the more durable and harder rubber in the heel section, and then some actually fairly deep grooves with flex grooves through the forefoot, which I think is why the forefoot feels so flexible. So I'm happy to see they left so much rubber here, which I think helps with the overall grip and longevity of this daily trainer. Well, that concludes the review. Let me know what you think in the comments. Would you try out the Adrenaline GTS, or are you going to bump it up to something maybe like the Glycerin, which is the thicker version? I would love to hear from you. I'm Ryan from Ryan's Running Reviews, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks.